Hello and welcome back. I'm Monika Håkonsen, your divine channel for the Greek goddesses, your feminine embodiment mentor, and your mystic bestie that teaches you everything that school never did. So today we're going to talk about the Akashic Records. This is something that have intrigued a lot of people for quite some time, and I wanted to clear out what the Akashic Records are, how you work with them, how I have worked with them, and how I'm still working with them. So the Akashic Records is a higher consciousness of information. So everything has its own record in Akasha. Let's take us human beings for an example. In the Akashic Records, in your Akashic Records, you can find information about your soul's evolution. So everything your soul have ever thought, did, every soul experience, everything that is connected to your soul from your first incarnations to now today is in the Akashic Records. So that is a field of information where we can collect things, information, understanding, clarity, healing of what we need. Now, there is an Akashic Records for everything that exists, meaning that the plants that I have in the background here, they have their own Akashic Records. This house has its own Akashic Records. The land of where the house is standing has its own Akashic Records. A country has its own, a place. You understand, everything has its own Akashic Records because everything is energy, and energy is information. So when you are connecting to the Akashic Records, you can connect and gather information about anything. We don't want to connect to the Akashic Records of your neighbor or a celebrity just because you can, because that is, for me, something that is unethical, because you are crossing a threshold and you need someone's permission before you actually go into their private Akashic Records. When it comes to lands or places, this is something that you can access without any confirmation from a specific person. However, if you're going to check on the house of someone you know, or a house to someone you don't know but you're curious, that is a place where you need the confirmation of the owner of the land or of the house. The same goes for animals. You can access your own animal's Akashic Record, but if you are to open the Akashic Records of a friend's animal or of an animal that you are crossing by that is actually owned by someone else, you need their confirmation of opening their Akashic Records. So we want to thread with dignity and also with ethical rules when we are working with the Akashic Records. And this is something that I find deeply disrespectful when I see people on the internet checking the Akashic Records of celebrities here and there without confirmation, because even though someone is a celebrity, it doesn't mean that you are owned by everyone. So we need to respect the privacy of people and of animals and places. And perhaps you, as me, think the most interesting thing is to actually open your own Akashic Records or get information from someone else that is an Akashic Records reader of your own records, because that is how you get clarity on your life, something that you have been wondering about. Perhaps there's something that you're afraid of and you don't understand why, because in this lifetime you haven't had any experiences that actually would say that you would be afraid of that specific thing happening. It can also be why your body has specific illnesses. It can also be questions about why you have incarnated with specific people, like friends and family, what your soul contract is, what lessons you're here to learn about each other. It can be about what kind of past lifetimes you've had to actually gather and activate gifts and traits and abilities that your soul have done a lot of times. And this was something that I mentioned a little bit in my first video when I talked about my soul awakening, was that I started to open the Akashic Records, and it felt so familiar to me because that was something that I've done 1,000 times before in many lifetimes. So I'm a quite experienced Akashic Records reader without actually me knowing it. And the first time when I started to dive into the Akashic Records was just by reading a book. So I bought this book, How to Read Akashic Records by Linda Howie. And from the first page, when I opened that book, I felt that the energy between me and the book was pulsing. Almost like my whole field was vibrating. Even though I sat still and there was no earthquake, it felt that it was an earthquake in my field. And for me, that is a sign that this is something important. Now you need to be aware, Monika. So from the very first time there, when I started to read that book, it says about how to open the Akashic Records. It says the prayer, it says what to do, what not to do, things like this. It's very simple, but yet it was everything that I needed to remember how I actually channel from the Akashic Records. And quite easily I connected, and I was shown a past lifetime where I sat in the Akashic Records, where this was like breathing or speaking, you know, something that you just do, and it's so normal, and you don't think about that. From that point, I could very easily read the information from the Akashic Records. And when I say read, I actually channel the information from the Akashic Record. I started to practice on people that someone that I know, and then people that were more unknown. And I was so nervous. Let me tell you, like, I was so afraid that I was just making everything up. But I had promised myself that I would say everything that I felt, everything that dropped into my head, everything that came in, and then it would be to the other person to judge if this is something that resonates with them or not. And I did. And I got so much good feedback, like people saying that this makes so much sense. And there were things that I shouldn't be able to know about them because I didn't know the person good enough to actually know stuff like that about them. And I started to build up my confidence, and I started to understand that I was actually quite good at it. And also, as I mentioned in the first video where I introduced myself and telling my story, this was also around the time where I entered a channeling program where my guides said, we needed you to understand during this program that you are already a skilled channel. So everything that I needed to do was actually to practice how my channel worked, how I interpreted energy coming in, and translating that into words. So even though I've been a channel for many lifetimes, read the Akashic Records, been channeling energy and translating that, I needed in this lifetime with this body to remember how I did that. And that is the practice that we need to do when we get to know that, you've been a channel or a healer or whatever in a past lifetime. And at some point it will come quite natural, but then you have the human ego and the mind that just wants to understand. So that is basically like the human thing that we need to do here to actually embody the practices that the soul already knows. Let's get back to Akashic Records. For the first years of my business, I did a lot of Akashic Records readings. And at some point, the guides that are in the Akashic Records stopped speaking as loud. It was almost like I couldn't get as much details as I usually did. And suddenly the Greek goddesses step forward and they say, hey, you're here to be our channel, so you can channel us. And I was like, okay. And what happened next was that I didn't call the channelings that I do Akashic Records readings anymore, because that is not what I actually do. What I do now is so much more. Because when I was channeling the Akashic Records, I was channeling information to you. Whilst now, when I'm working and channeling the Greek goddesses, who I am a channel for and have a soul contract with this lifetime, I am transmitting light codes, meaning frequencies, energies, vibration through my voice when it comes from the Greek goddesses. And it is speaking to your cells in your body so they can activate all of the wisdom, the teachings that we are giving you through a transmission like that. It is activating your gifts, it is activating the remembrance of who you are and who you are here to be. And that is so much more powerful than just channeling information from the Akashic Records, because yes, that is fun. It's fun to know all of these things about you and your neighbor and your boyfriend or your family, or the illnesses that you have and why things are happening the way it is. But it doesn't do a lot for you in the long run. Whilst now when I'm channeling the Greek goddesses, they are directly connected to the Akashic Records. And you are getting the information that you need to step forward in your life, to move from stuckness and into more flow, to feel more whole, to connect to your higher self, to connect to your beautiful soul gifts, to connect to your soul mission, your purpose, why you're here, to find meaning, and to step into that confidence of being you. And that is what the Greek goddesses is bringing. So yes, I could still open the Akashic Records and channel your guides and get some information, but it wouldn't be something that is life-changing or turning the course of your life into something that is so much better than when you're here. But with the Greek goddesses, I get more details. You get more help. You get more guidance. You feel more full after a session like that. And yes, I could call it a channeling session with the Greek goddesses coming from the Akashic Records, but I don't. The session that I have now is called The Oracle Speaks. That is a channeled session with the Greek goddesses. And remember, the Greek goddesses are connected to the Akashic Records. They know everything. And this is a transmission where you can step into your authentic self, to your higher self, into your power, into your joy, into love, into abundance. And that is not something that I've ever experienced happening when I was just channeling the Akashic Records and the guides there. And I still believe that the Akashic Records are beautiful and a good tool for the ones that are here to work with that. During my experience now as a channel, even if I channeled the Greek goddesses, I got the same information as when I was channeling the Akashic Records itself. The difference between them are so subtle that it's almost like it is actually weaved into each other. So it is not that I won't get any information when I'm channeling the Greek goddesses for you, because I will get the exact same information, but the statement, the clarity, everything that you are getting are 100 times more powerful than if I were to step out of alignment of who I am and into the Akashic Records reader. That was just a chapter of me and my business, and are still a big part of me. And this is very important to note, that when you are stepping into who you are, into alignment of who you are, using your gifts, using your traits, really stepping into who you are meant to be, the power of what you are transmuting from what you are doing have tenfold effect on the people who are receiving that. And that is why I changed the Akashic Records reading into the Oracle Speaks channeled sessions. In the Oracle Speaks channel session, you can still ask questions that you're curious about, but mainly we are focusing on you. We are connecting you to your higher self. We are exploring your soul gifts, your soul purpose, what psychic abilities you have that are the strongest ones, so you can understand them and actually start to use them. We are going into past lifetimes if that is necessary for you to understand how experienced you are in different areas, and also so you can start to remember these traits, these gifts that you have been carrying for many lifetimes and that you have been an expert on. And there will always be room for you to ask questions, but perhaps your neighbor Karen is not the most important person here. Maybe the most important person for you to get from where you are, where you might feel stuck, into more free, more confident, in more joy and love, are more about you and how you can become that version of yourself. And that has nothing to do with Karen. Either way, I do understand that it is very interesting to know what connections that you have with partners, families, so on and so forth. That is not my speciality, even though I can channel that information, but that won't do anything for you in the long run. So let's focus on you. And if you are curious, you can go and book the Oracle Speaks channel session via the captions underneath. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the comments field. And if there's anything else you want to know, please leave a comment. Remember to subscribe to get the new videos about my stuff here on the channel. And I hope that I'll see you next time.